Omaha. They've sent it out all over our country, all Unity churches, and they're asking people, especially on Tuesdays, to use this prayer in support of our upcoming elections, because we want to act in ways that create justice, peace, freedom, and well-being for all. So anyway, if you didn't get one, they're right in the foyer on the way out. You can certainly take one with you as you go. The Missoula County Health Department is still encouraging indoor masking to help prevent the spread of COVID. And we do still have quite a few cases in our county, unfortunately, but we're letting people use their own judgment. So let's honor each other with nods and waves, masked or not, and take a few minutes to just say hello to everybody in the room, everybody on Zoom. It's really nice to see a pretty full room for a change. So thanks so much. Now, as we move into the more formal part of our service, let's remember that Unity of Missoula is a team ministry founded on the 5 basic tenets of unity. Number 1, God is all good and active in everything, everywhere. I am naturally good because God's divinity is in me and in everyone. I create my experiences by what I choose to think and what I feel and believe. Through affirmative prayer and meditation, I connect with God and bring out the good in my life. And number 5, I do and give my best by living the truth I know. I make a difference. And I do have a sign-up sheet today. This is for cookies and help with cleanup and setup. On the first Sunday of each month, the board voted to have cookies and coffee again after the service. So if you can help, are willing to be here a little early to set up and stay late to clean up and to bring cookies or juice or whatever, please sign the sign-up sheet and I'll start it around. So it's time to read the daily word together. And the word for today is joy, one of my favorites. I delight in simple joys. Joy, it has been said, comes much more from wanting what we have than from having what we want. Reflecting on this thought, I embrace the simple joys that this day offers. I enjoy my morning coffee or tea, savoring its flavor and fragrance. Walking through my neighborhood, I greet friends, smile at people I haven't met yet, and enjoy the fresh air. I find satisfaction in taking care of my home, working at my job, or helping a friend. Even if I am not with them today, I feel joy as I think about my connection with the people I care most about. I know joy whenever I look for possibilities rather than focusing on problems. My greatest joy is my awareness that wherever I am, whatever I'm doing, God is always with me. And from Psalm number 16, verse 11, you show me the path of life. In your presence, there is fullness of joy. In your right hand are pleasures forevermore. Amen. And here are a few things we want to tell you about this week. Next Sunday, our speaker will be Nancy Leifer. Our October theme is the purpose of zeal. October's power or ability is zeal. The color is orange, and the representatives are the disciple Simon the Zealot and the Samaritan woman at the well. At 12:30 today is our last session of the class Facing the Mourning, a grief workshop. That's been a great class for opening yourself to understanding where you are in the process of grief. So thanks, Susan, for leading us. Our online book group meets Mondays at 12:30, and they are reading Sweetgrass by Robin Kemmerer. To get the link, please talk with Nancy Leifer. Our in-person book group meets this Tuesday at 12:30, and we will begin reading Being Mortal by Atul Gawande. Our Course in Miracles study group meets Wednesdays at 12:30. And we are holding a time of silent prayer meditation for peace and support of the people of Ukraine and Russia. That happens every Thursday at 7 p.m. If you can attend in person, please take a few minutes to join us from a distance. We know that prayer works miracles. And thanks so much to those of you who continue to support our Unity community through your tithes and love offerings. There is a basket in the foyer for donations from those of you who are physically here. You may also mail your offerings to 546 South Avenue West, Missoula. The church's 10% tithe this week goes to the Northwest region of Unity Worldwide Ministries. Please hold them in your heart as I affirm. Divine love is the source of our bounty. Divine love as us blesses and multiplies all that we are and have, all that we give, and all that we receive. Now let us affirm this together one more time. Divine love is the source of our bounty. Divine love as us blesses and multiplies all that we are and have, all that we give, and all that we receive. And before we move on to the talk this week, I will affirm Unity's primary affirmation and ask you to join me for 2 more times. The affirmation is, there is only one presence and one power in my life, the all-loving goodness of God. Now together, there is only one presence and one power in my life, the all-loving goodness of God. And one more time. There is only one presence and one power in my life, the all-loving goodness of God. And now let us also affirm our Missoula Unity affirmation. I will read it once and then we can affirm it together. We are Unity of Missoula. We are a radiating center of divine love, open and accessible to all. We are God's light, peace, and joy wherever we are. Together, we are Unity of Missoula. We are a radiating center of divine love, open and accessible to all. We are God's light, peace, and joy wherever we are. Unity of Missoula maintains a circle of people who have made a commitment to pray every day for others at their request. If you have the names of people to hold in prayer for a month, you may place their names in the prayer box right here in front of the podium. Those names are sent out weekly to our prayer circle and to Silent Unity, and they are held for 30 days of prayer. Or you can call the church and leave a message on our phone line, and your name, the name of who you want prayers for, will be sent on to our prayer circle. Please join me for a moment as we hold all of these people in our hearts. You may now also say aloud or silently the names of those you wish to bring into this time of prayer. Dear God, we hold these friends and loved ones in our hearts. We behold their light as expressions of the indwelling Christ. We release them to your care and affirm divine order in their lives and in ours. Thank you, God. Amen. Our speaker this week is Jeannine Flaten, who has also been our choir director and worship coordinator and many roles through the years. I asked her how she wanted me to introduce her, and she said, oh, just the usual. Tell everybody that that I'm your favorite person in the whole wide world. And then she kind of took that back, but you know what? She is at least right up there near the top. Of course, I can't say that too loud in front of Tom, but hey. Anyway, Jeannine has been a real mainstay in our church, and she assures me we're going to do choir this year for Christmas. Yay! So, we hope, keep our fingers crossed that things continue on the way they are. So without further ado, here is one of my very favorite people, Jeannine.
Now, the thing about a timer is that you have to turn it on if you want it to actually work. Okay, so that was stop. This is start. There we go. Morning, everybody. Thank you to the choir of the choir. Thank you for doing that great song. That was just lovely. And thanks to Jeff for everything he takes care of, and Nancy. And thank you all for being here. So we've already had a couple of fantastic talks, and there's 2 more talks in the month, right? So the speakers committee often will try to give something that'll seem like it's maybe you can go with different places, like the purpose of zeal. So somebody might want to go more with purpose than with enthusiasm or zeal. Or we could work with the Samaritan woman at the well, which is, I look back at a zeal talk I gave a year ago, and it was almost totally on the Samaritan woman at the well. I've never heard anybody do one on Simon the Zealot, though. So I don't know. That could be because we don't want one of those unfortunate incidents like Roger was talking about last week, when somebody's pounding on the podium, Although Jeff used to say, please don't do that. It's very hard on my ears. Anyway, wonderful, wonderful to be here. So today I probably don't have anything terribly new to talk about, although, I would never be accused of being someone who doesn't have enthusiasm, at least not usually. I have had a few times in my life, though, where it was a little bit problematic because people were so accustomed to me being kind of buoyant and joyous. And I think it was Susan who was talking about Tigger, maybe almost Tigger-like, right? So that when I wasn't, it was, what's wrong? Or why don't you smile? Or, da, da, da. And I was reminded of a waitress that I used to work with who would say, I only smile twice a month, and that's on payday, and this isn't it. She lived that too, I'll tell you. But okay, so I'm going to try to stick with my script because I actually did do some homework up here. If you're interested at all, we have the Tyndale Gospels before they were taken out of the Old English, which is a little hard to read, but really I think the most beautiful of the English translations, and then the actual Koine Greek over there. I was trying to think, okay, what is it about zeal that I can say that hasn't been said, or that somebody won't come up to me afterwards and say, there's absolutely nothing to talk about now. And I think it's probably the idea of the movement of energy, which is the spoken word, it's singing, dancing, making things, creative energy, right? Carolyn Mace, who is a medical intuitive, I think that's how you say it, among many other things, says that the management of our emotional and mental energy is the priority for our health, for our overall health. Now, some people quibble a little bit about the word management because it seems like it's kind of a control thing, but I see it more in the sense of that these tools that we use, prayer, meditation, service to other people, studying, getting together in these groups and talking about, the spiritual path that we're on and sharing that and supporting each other. Those things are, if you want to call it that, a management of our energy. It's similar to the way education, the Latin word educe, which comes in the word, yes, education and educing, is to bring outward or forward. You're drawing something out of, in this case, ourselves. So how about just a word or two about purpose? Now, this is going to sound kind of like an English grammar lesson, maybe, but I can't help it. Okay, ready? Purpose, like many words in our English language, can function as a noun. This is usually most common in usage. It then morphs often into verbal and adjectival and even adverbal forms. Adverbal, yes. So, but when I say purpose, everybody just think, what is it what comes to your mind? Purpose. I think one of the things that often comes to mind quickly from being raised in a Norwegian farm family is, what's the purpose of that? Does that have any purpose at all? But for me now, I understand that it is truly an aim. It's a direction. Again, it's that movement of energy. It's the end of our effort in a certain way, not the conclusion of it, but the goal. When I use the word end, that's what I'm talking about. So the action in that, if we take it to the verbal form, is to accomplish that. And both Susan and Roger talked quite a bit about that. I mean, my dad used to say, you can have all the energy or all the zeal, or he didn't use the word zeal, I don't think, but in fact, a lot of times he said, would you please sit down and be quiet? But, oh, anyway, I'll get to that later. So anyway, I'm going to look at zeal as life energy and some of the ways that it manifests, and particularly a few of these will be personal to me. But always here, listen for the truth that that we hear in our tenets every Sunday, and fill in any of the blanks with what works for you in your life experience. So this one we've talked about already quite a bit, but I can't neglect it, and that is zeal as passion and joy. And you could just also call that fun, right? I knew I was in the right place when I first came. We were talking about first coming here, right? And I walked in, and of course I was late back then. And I come walking in, and they're singing this, I am free, I am unlimited, and I'm like, whoa, this is church, I mean, okay, so that was the first thing. And then at the very end, David says this, and have fun, and we're still saying that, right? 40 years later. So, okay, what is ours to do? Susan was talking about that too, in terms of Charles's, kind of most famous quote about enthusiasm and sizzling. I mean, when was the last time you felt like you were sizzling? Come on, has anybody been sizzling lately? It does. What? Oh, that was sizzling. I'll agree with that. Hey, but I've been watching Baghdad's temperature. This is a sidebar, everybody. I've been watching Baghdad's temperature all summer. Holy Hannah. That's hot. So the modern equivalent maybe of sizzling is what Marie Kondo, who I'm sure some of you are familiar with her work. Most of her work has to do with, I don't even want to just call it organizing. She has this kind of Japanese approach to making our surroundings feel welcoming to us and letting go of clutter. But she also says it in terms of our emotional well-being. But one of the things she says that I love is she says, if you pick up something and you're thinking about getting rid of it, you ask yourself, does this spark joy? That can be a piece of clothing, that can be a so-called heirloom or antique or something that you maybe are keeping just because you think you should. It's very interesting. But back to this joy and passion. What I have done in the last, it's hard to say it, but 40 years and maybe longer, because it pretty much started in my teens in terms of actually studying, is taken my passion for music, for what's now called motivational speaking, although at that time it was debate and interpretive speaking. I also was a competitive speaker in which you would walk in and they would give you a subject and you would have 5 minutes to come. Some of you have done that. Yes, it's a lot of fun. Actually, what happened was, and this is kind of a sidebar too, I was good at it and I got, awards and all of that. And by time I'd been doing it for a few years. And can you believe I did this when I was a kid? I'm just amazed. I went to my teacher and I said, I don't care if I'm good at this or not. It makes me feel sick. I mean, it makes my stomach hurt. And I'm going to stop doing it. I just want to do the interpretive stuff. I want to do the readings and, things of that nature. And of course they said, sorry, you can't do that. You're already signed up. You have to do what you said you were going to do, which is something I'll talk about later, dedication and commitment. Anyway, that's probably enough. But here's the questions I've asked myself over the years about that practice of passion in music and in speaking and in teaching. That's what happened later, was teaching. So have I become the most well-known or the most rich in a conventional definition of that by that? Not really, unless you think about being rich in the way the Native people in Alaska define it. And I'm sure a lot of you know that you are loved and you're able to love, and that you have, a warm home and plenty to share with others. So I've been rich in that way. Here's another one. Has there been times when my enthusiasm for my own passion and having to have it my own way has clashed with other people? What do you think? But here's the best one. Have I grown more and more into my own authentic self through this pursuit of that love and that passion? And that's a resounding yes. So, boy, the time just flies up here, doesn't it? Moving on, just to talk about dedication and persistence for a minute in terms of commitment and how that coincides with having a passion and having joy. And I don't know if I'll be able to say this or not. For me, that requires persistence. Stick to it-ism. Okay? The fire just burns hot and goes out. This is the thing my dad used to say. You're just a flash in the pan. I'm tired of you, And I had a teacher, I was telling Diana about this last week. I had a teacher who kicked me out of voice class because he said, I'm tired of you wasting all your energy out in the hallway. You get serious you learn this piece. It was from Samson and Delilah, for God's sake. I mean, it's one of the hardest arias. I found this out many years later. It's one of the most difficult arias. And he had chosen it just for me because it was extreme, anyway, long story. So he said, come back when you're ready to work. And I went back, I never did learn. He never let me have that song back. But when I was in my late 30s, I had a voice teacher who found it. It was out of print and she found it. And I learned it and I sang it at a recital. And my husband said, I don't like it when you sing that song. That's a very scary song, because Delilah's singing about, taking Samson down. I'm glad you guys are laughing because I'm going to get very serious here. No, really, I am. And it's not my fault. This is what came to me through, I like to believe it's some sort of guidance. And I said, are you sure you want me to talk about that in zeal? And it's like, yes, this is what you have to talk about. And then I kind of tried to ignore it. And then the next thing you know, I come across this article and it's got the reference in it of what it was that I heard coming to me. So at any rate, the other thing about dedication and persistence that I have to mention is that, let's see, I was 40, was I 41? My husband was killed in a car wreck and my children were 9 and 16. My oldest son, who was his stepson, but had been, partially raised by him, was just out of the house, 22, 23. And I'm not sure how long it took, maybe 2 or 3 years. There was a time when I began to just feel that the energy that I had in this way, in knowing who I was, or in knowing that speaking and being inspirational maybe for other people, and also bringing out the best I could in a group of singers. And thanks again for that song, because all God's children do have a place in our choir. Tell you that. But that I was losing that connection. I was not, in fact, if I want to be honest, I remember sitting on the back steps and looking up and looking at Mark's rifles and going, I could learn to shoot those. That was a moment, right? Because it wasn't what I would call a direct thought of, I'm going to leave, I'm checking out. But the next thing I thought was, you better get back to work. Those things just were sequential like that. I don't think I've ever told anybody here in public about that. But when you're in that luminous place, that numinous place between the worlds, and I'm sure those of you that have been in Susan's doing work with Susan, you know what I'm talking about. And I know a lot of people do. There's a real opening. So this segues into this more serious thing that I want to put forth as another way of expressing our life energy, our emotion, our movement, and our purpose. And these, again, are not people's favorite words, but I'm sorry, these are the words that came. Zeal is sacrifice and surrender. I like to utilize a Jesus teaching whenever I speak. This one is ultimate. Under the topic of purposeful dedication to life energy, in the way that it was revealed to him in his world-changing, albeit brief time of ministry. As an intermittent Greek scholar, I tend to go back to the Koine with the text. Here are some of the descriptive words that Jesus reportedly used when he, this is what he called it, went to wake Lazarus. And these words are also found in parts of the Gethsemane story, which, for a real quick sidebar, the Synoptic Gospels use the Gethsemane story as the ultimate, for lack of a better word, test that Jesus went through before he turned his face towards Jerusalem and went to finish his aim and purpose that he had determined for his own life. And then John is the only one who brings forth the Lazarus story. And of course, John was a number maybe 30 years later, maybe 40 than the other three. That's not quite exactly right, but it's approximate. So Gary Wills, I don't know if any of you are familiar with him, but he's an amazing scholar and won the Pulitzer Prize for his book about Lincoln, but mainly writes about spiritual matters. This is from his book, What Jesus Meant. He says, when Jesus proves to his followers that he can raise Lazarus, he is showing them that his own death is voluntary. And he said it. He said, I now lay down my life in order to be able to take it up again. No one takes it from me. I have the authority to lay it down and also the authority to take it back up again. Now we know John is a different kind of writer than the other Gospels or whoever it is that wrote John. But even so, that's very, very strong language. Yet even though Christ makes that statement, he becomes what Gary Wills calls, emotionally wrought as never before. Now I call that zeal in this context. So as he approaches the tomb of Lazarus, the language becomes even more intense. And when he saw Mary and Martha weeping and the others with them also weeping, he was convulsed. That's much closer to the, and in the Greek, that is enebrimesata. They don't like to make it simple. It's like enebrimesata. And that loosed his passion within, which is another heteroxen huaton. You know, it's got some breath behind it. It's got some power. So he asked them, where did you bury him? And they said, come and see, Lord. Then Jesus broke down into tears. What have we always heard that translated as? Jesus wept. Jesus wept. That seems like a real understatement to me, right? Convulsed within yourself, loosing your passion, breaking down into tears. And many said, look how much he loved him. But others said, well, if he could raise other people or heal other people, why didn't he get here faster? I think the thing about that one that really is helpful to me is that it's like, if you're going to stand up for who you really are and you're going to be your authentic self and you're going to take some risks and you're going to go out. And in this case, he's showing his authority over life and death. You're going to get criticized. In his case, you might get killed. Once again, he was convulsed. Once isn't enough. We get the Greek form 2 more times in a plural type usage. That's not exactly correct, but it's like that. Within himself, and I love how they keep saying within himself, within himself. What's so interesting about that? If it was within himself, how could they see it? Well, obviously you could see if somebody breaks down into tears. And then Wills talks about how, remember that flap over that movie, The Last Temptation of Christ, and how they were just all losing, well, not all of them, but a lot of people were losing their minds over that. What was so incredible about that is that Christ, when Jesus, I should say, Jeshua, reached into the tomb to try to pull Lazarus out, he was almost pulled into the tomb by Lazarus in the book and the movie, which again is a powerful thing. It's this sense of, we do need to guard against being a zealot in a sense. We do need to not be going around beating each other over the head with our peace signs. You know, you know what I'm saying? Pema Chodron she makes a lot of jokes about that. But anyway, I'll be wrapping up here, folks, because, you know, I'll just leave you with that image and say, there is something about the strongest of our emotions. Sometimes they are afflictive, as the Dalai Lama says, they're afflictive emotions, but sometimes the strongest emotions that we experience, and many times they are around loss, are those that can create that movement. And it is a transformation. I think the thing for me that I have to be careful of is trying to rush to that transformation. There's a space between the experience and the outpicturing of a transformation for me. So I offered that also as an honoring of the 6.4 million people who died in the pandemic, an honoring of the passing of some of our beloved members here at Missoula Unity, and also the many whom I've encountered who are suffering from deep depression or anxiety, feeling like they don't want to live, including an unprecedented number of children and adolescents. And thinking about the season of fall. We've just had Rosh Hashanah too, where we come to this place where we look at our lives. And that's what the meditation is going to be about today, is just listening to our lives. So as fall brings us to the darkest time of the year, we know that sometimes we have to call on and even embrace the difficult, the seeming impossible, bringing our life energy to it so that we can take up our life again, like Jesus said, to heal, to turn to the light, to face it with a new resolve, and to be our most authentic selves. Luckily, we're not alone. We have each other. We have our tools, prayer and meditation, service, compassion, telling the truth, living the truth we know. And I couldn't help but throw in singing and dancing and all kinds of creative expressions, art. I was going to bring that beautiful music stand you made for me, Roger, and use it as a prop, because to me, it's one of the same, I don't have those kind of talents, but when I'm talking about creativity and making things, I'm not just talking about, those, kinds of arts, but all art. Most vital of all, and this will take us into our meditation, we have a deep and certain assurance of the all-loving goodness of God, which expresses in us and as us and is ever with us in every breath. And for that we say, thank you. Amen. Jeff will give us some background music that'll help us just settle into our chairs for a short meditation. We just breathe together. Take in a deep breath. Today we listen to the deepest truth in ourselves. The truth that tells us what is our joy, what is our passion. Listening to our life, perhaps something that we might need to overcome. some way in which we might need to adapt or change. That which moves us forward regardless of circumstances. When we listen to our lives telling us what's right for us. Even if that is something that might feel disruptive, maybe at first. We just honor it and go back to it and say, we're willing to hear you. We're willing to listen. To put the old ways, as Susan mentioned, to make space for the new. And less of intentions and motives. Letting go of concern, letting go of oh, perhaps we were taught to pray feeling separate from God. But here we pray in participation with creation, for we are part of that healing, of that guidance, of that prosperity, and of that peace. This moment and always, and for that, again, we are grateful. And just allow yourselves to come back to the room when you're comfortable and look around at all the beautiful people, the light. And Linda's going to come up and lead us out. So thank you so much. We're awesome.
So at this point in the service, we will say our prayer for protection together, followed by the singing of the peace song. And I invite you to move into a circle since we have so many people today. If you're more comfortable staying where you are, you're welcome to do that as well. But let's take just a moment and stand up and stretch a bit. And again, this gives us the opportunity to look at each other and just give thanks that indeed we are here together in one purpose, one power. And so together, the light of God surrounds us, the love of God enfolds us, the power of God protects us, and the presence of God watches over us. Wherever we are, God is, and all is well.
Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me. Let there be peace on earth, the peace that was meant to be. With God as creator, family are we. Let us walk with each other in perfect harmony. Let peace begin with me. Let this be the moment now. With every step I take, let this be my solemn vow. To take each moment and live each moment in peace eternally. Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me.
So as you go forth, remember you are the peace and the joy and the zeal, the enthusiasm, and the light in the earth right now. So let it shine and
Have fun.
yeah.